try to analyze. Firstly, viewers, Gaza-based Palestinian armed groups have released two hostages. On the 7th of October, when this war broke out, we saw that hundreds of Palestinian fighters of Hamas PIJ, they breached the security fence to the east and north of Gaza, and they entered Israel-controlled settlements and they abducted civilians and soldiers. They killed civilians and soldiers too. More than 100 were taken prisoner and taken to Gaza from Israel-controlled territories. These hostages include foreigners from different countries, the world, and Western countries have been trying to secure the release of their abductees. Talks have been underway in Doha, Qatar. Qatar is mediating between Palestinian groups and Western countries. Ismail Haniyeh was seen in Qatar, who is Hamas political bureau head. He held a meeting with Iranian foreign minister there, and some Western officials arrived there. Two talks were held, and Palestinian groups agreed to release two hostages. An American woman and her daughter have been handed over by Hamas to the Red Cross. So the two hostages have been released. Hamas says that the woman was in poor health. That is why on humanitarian ground she has been released. So a goodwill gesture from Hamas, from Palestinian groups, that they are ready to release the hostages, but they want bombardment of Gaza to stop. They don't want ground invasion of Gaza. Will this release of hostages stop Israel from launching ground offensive on Gaza? That remains to be seen. Western countries, US, they have been putting pressure upon Israel to stop the ground invasion of Gaza. They want to secure the release of their nationals before the start of ground offensive. But no guarantee if all hostages are released will Israel postpone invasion of Gaza. No guarantee. That is why Palestinian groups are reluctant to release all hostages. Secondly, viewers, Rafah border crossing, Egypt-Gaza border crossing is about to be opened, it seems. US President Joe Biden, when he visited Israel 2 days ago, he requested Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli government, to open Rafah border crossing if Israel wanted to launch ground invasion of Gaza. Israel reportedly agreed, but Israel wants checks and balances on Egyptian side of the border. It wants UN to be in charge of aid delivery. It wants to ensure that no weapons, no materials which could be used by Hamas fighters, Palestinian fighters, enters Gaza from Egypt. It wants to ensure that the aid does not end up in the hands of Palestinian groups. Rather, the aid reaches the people in need in Gaza. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was at Rafah border crossing today. He spoke there and he said that Gaza people are in urgent need of humanitarian aid, and UN will monitor, ensure that the aid reaches the people in need in Gaza. Agreement has been reached reportedly in coming hours. Gaza border crossing is going to be open. Meanwhile, hundreds of Egyptians marched towards Rafah border crossing. They demanded that the border be opened. They said our people are suffering, our Palestinian brothers are suffering, and they sent a message to Palestinians from across the border saying, we are with you, 100 million Egyptians are with you, be strong, be steadfast. The protest was then dispersed by Egyptian border authorities. But it seems that in coming hours we could see opening of Rafah border crossing. In Gaza, there is a humanitarian crisis. Hospitals have run out of supplies. There is dire shortage of food items, dire shortage of fuel as well. People are suffering, and we know that thousands have been injured in airstrikes conducted by Israeli Air Force since the 7th of October. UN is calling for immediate opening of the border crossing, but Israel has been rejecting UN demands. Let's see. Thirdly, viewers, Lebanon-Israel border. The Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon are continuing their pressure on Israeli military. Again today, guided missiles were fired from Lebanon, targeting an Israeli defense force outpost. Some Israeli soldiers have been killed in this missile attack from Lebanese territory, reportedly. Meanwhile, a town on Israel-Lebanon border is being vacated by Israeli military. Kiryat Shimona, with population of around 20,000 people, is being vacated because several attacks have been carried out on this town where some military sites of IDF are situated, attacks by Hezbollah fighters. Israel is also continuing its drone strikes, artillery strikes, and tank fire as well on Lebanese territories where Hezbollah fighters are. So now Israel-Lebanon border is it's an active front. Like Gaza is an active front where again today rockets were fired from Gaza towards Israel-controlled territories, and Israel is continuing airstrikes on Gaza. Israel claims to have targeted a senior Hamas operative. It claims that Muhammad Sabi, who is an engineer and one of key brains behind Hamas's rocket and drone program, was killed in an airstrike on Gaza. These airstrikes are hitting targets, Hamas, PIJ's infrastructure, their leaders, and obviously people are dying too in collateral damage. A church, an ancient church, suffered some damage when IDF carried out an airstrike on Gaza yesterday. More than 1,000-year-old Greek Orthodox church of Saint Porphyrius suffered damage, mildly damaged because of a strike by Israeli Air Force. Israel says that Palestinian groups have placed their rocket firing equipment close to worship places. That is why sometimes worship places are indirectly hit. Israel is not directly hitting these sites. Fourthly, viewers, US interests in the Middle East in danger. Definitely, US, though it is openly supporting Israel, but if the war goes on, if Gaza is invaded, there could be more attacks on US military bases in the Middle East. 7 times US military bases in Syria and Iraq were attacked in the last 48 hours. 2 military bases of US were attacked in Iraq, and the responsibility was claimed by Iran-backed groups. One US base was attacked in Erbil, Iraq. Name of the base is Harir, and Tashkil al-Warithin is an Iran-backed Shia militia, which claimed responsibility for this attack. Second attack was carried out on Ain al-Assad base, which is in Anbar province of Iraq, and here Islamic resistance claimed responsibility for this attack. Some attacks on US bases in Syria too. I did a video on that yesterday. Several Iran-backed groups have issued ultimatums warning US that in case of continued US support for Israel, US military interests in the Middle East will be hit. We have seen statements from Badr organization, Hezbollah brigades, Khatib Sayyidul Shohda. These are Iraq-based groups, Iran backed, and they have issued statements vowing to hit US targets. US bases in the region. So if the war goes on, if war